Bo Nix, Jaden Daniels, and Caleb Williams have all looked a little questionable so far. None of them have truly looked like first-round quarterbacks, outside of Jaden Daniels, I'd say, but even he has had a couple of his faults. Today, I'll go over these players and let you guys know that's honestly not time to panic yet. In my poll with 162 votes, 54% of people agreed Caleb Williams has been the worst, and honestly, I definitely do agree with this. And second was Bo Nix with 39% of the votes. And for some weird reason, Jaden Daniels got a couple, but it's probably just Broncos or Bears fans being a little salty. First off, I'll just compare stats of these players, and stats don't reflect everything, but I think it's nice just to see the numbers. Jaden Daniels has 410 passing yards and 132 rushing yards. He has no picks or TDs through the airs, but he almost threw one against the Giants. He has 2 rushing TDs and 2 fumbles, although both of them were recovered. Nix has thrown 4 INTs. Yeah, I know that's not good, but one of them was a Hail Mary interception, so I wouldn't count it. Although for a Hail Mary attempt, it was kind of awful. He did look well improved in his pit game with 246 yards and a better completion rate. Overall, 385 yards passing, 4 interceptions, 60 yards rushing with a TD. I make this point a little more later on in the video, but Bo Nix's jumpiness has caused some INTs. He's jumping to make some plays and force them. You can kind of tell based on what he said in his interview. I just dropped back and threw it to the other team. Caleb's last up, who's felt really disappointing. He has 267 yards, no TDs, and 2 interceptions. Honestly, feels like he's had some good plays though, but nothing has been super exciting from the first overall pick. And something I feel like is common for all these guys is people are acting like they should be playing like all pros. They've all currently played 2 games, and some people are trying to put the bust title on them. But the truth is, they've all shown flashes. Bo Nix has shown his legs off some. We've seen the running ability Daniels was drafted for, and Caleb, well, he's shown his ability to roll out the pocket a little bit and still stay calm for the most part. Most of these QBs have all had their fair share of bad throws too. Nix's 4 interceptions obviously lead the pack. 2 of them were just some awful decisions. But going over all their main weaknesses so far, Nix is definitely on the worst team. I thought the Broncos could be kind of good this year, but this receiver core has looked pretty weak. O-line has been way worse than I would have thought, and the running backs can't really run the ball. Caleb, though, is absolutely surrounded by talent. The O-line may be a little weaker than the rest of the offensive squad, but he has 2 good, solid tight ends, a receiver room with Pro Bowlers, and a good running back. He doesn't really have the excuses the others do other than inexperience, and that is super important. And obviously another thing with the Bears, it feels like the scheme and play calling has just been a little bit questionable there, and obviously Eberflus, my bad, is a defensive head coach. But the OC just feels like he could do a slightly better job game planning for Caleb in the Bears offense. But moving to Jaden Daniels, and he's looked the best, and his team is probably worse than the Bears, but maybe a bit better than the Broncos. He's looked the best, though, and has honestly shown his talent more than these other quarterbacks have, and his strengths coming. But he's shown his talent off the most, and everything he was praised for coming out the draft is really what he's been showing off, especially his scrambling ability. Some stuff, though, Bo Nix, for an example, is praised on, he hasn't really shown, such as his accuracy, which has looked a little spotty at times so far, and his decision-making has been a little bit questionable, maybe a lot a bit questionable. Now that I'm done giving my rundown on them, though, and you've probably decided to click off, and if you haven't, if you really feel like it, go and like and sub. But my honest take on these guys is to just give them time. Stroud makes us all feel like they need to be elite right away, but Stroud was kind of mid his first 2 games, although he had quite a few yards. But these QBs have played 2 games, and people are already starting to panic or decide that they're not their guy. Other than Commanders fans, more so talking about the Broncos. Bears fans, they just want a QB so bad. But the amount of discredit, like I've kind of saying, that people are giving Bo Nix has been kind of insane. Now, Caleb Williams has been given a lot of shade too, although his feels just a little more deserved. I personally wasn't expecting an all-pro year out of him, especially his first couple games. Some of this is to blame on semi-poor game planning from coaches, but disappointing nonetheless. Daniels, for good reason, hasn't gotten much shade as he's been good, so that's why I've kind of not said as much about him on the weaknesses part. But if these QBs don't show much improvement by week 8, then maybe it's time to worry. For me personally, I'm expecting Bo Nix to take another step this week, as he did look better last week too. I'd hope Caleb Williams takes a step forward this week, and with Jaden Daniels playing the Bengals, I think he might struggle some and maybe not look as good as he has the past couple games, and I think the Bengals will get the first win on the board this week, but you never know, upsets happen, but I want to get down on any of these guys yet. And just what I want to see from all these guys, first off, Bo Nix just needs to settle down some. He's been super jumpy in the pocket, and that has really hurt his play, but honestly, it's not just Bo. All these guys have some stuff that they need to work on, and I'd say Caleb needs to settle down a little bit too. Now, Daniels has looked a lot calmer than Bo Nix and Caleb Williams have. For Daniels, at least in the Giants game, he didn't really air it out and chuck it downfield, but that's not really his fault. A lot of his yards came from the screen game, but that's just the scheme that they've installed there in Washington, at least as of now, maybe just to work him in. He took a couple sacks, but also did a nice job escaping some and extending the play. He also took some shots while running though, and he might want to consider start sliding a little more. That was everyone's concern for him coming out of the draft, but he survived so far. But that doesn't mean that it's going to be guaranteed that he won't get hurt or anything from taking shots when running. Now my final verdict, just let these guys develop. Patience is key. Not everyone is CJ Stroud or Justin Herbert.